Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Frank, and welcome back to Perspective Shift.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
It's a great week, kicking things off. Weather's still nice. Yesterday was the Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, so, obviously the time this gets out, it'll be beyond that. But, yeah, did you watch it?
I did. I did.
Yeah.
True American fashion. I made sure to watch and catch the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not a big sports guy, but it was fun watching the commercials. It was fun watching the game. It's the only football game I watch each year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I catch one.
Yeah, I didn't watch any football this year. Sunday's a really occupied time for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only day nothing's pulling at me other than, I shouldn't say other than, listen, I'm about to say other than hanging out with my wife. That'll go over well.
Yeah,
I actually
right.
enjoy hanging out with my wife. Yeah. All the joking I do, she's a very lovely person. It's fun. That's why she's my wife.
Exactly right.
And,
Yeah. Did you enjoy the game? Did you guys watch it?
Yeah, we did watch it.
Yeah.
It was kind of a blowout. But,
Yeah, it was.
It was exciting, I guess, if you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, but I just enjoy watching good plays, because even at the end, when they scored a couple of touchdowns, to Kansas City, it was kind of cool to see it, even though you're like, oh, there's no way in hell they're going to win the game, but it's still, hey, you got to play to the end.
No, totally.
Yeah, because,
And it was kind of cool to watch. I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about, that last one that they scored.
Yeah.
That was a big throw.
And even some of the commercials, like we talked about this, there's a theme running through, I'm sure everyone picked up on it, on unity, like getting together.
Mm-hmm.
It seems very contrived when you see it in the commercial, like, it
Over and
it's
over.
not something, yeah, it shouldn't be something forced. But you get to see, we've had enough with arguing over who the president is, who's not the president, climate change, not climate change. All these variables that are outside of us, and I think as humans, we're getting tired of it, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, and how to rectify that, and we go into exploring these ideas and why we do this, and
Yeah.
that's kind of going to be the theme of today's podcast.
I think that's perfect. And I think it's something we're all collectively feeling too. It's something we're all experiencing. We had a new administration come into office, 3 weeks ago, what now, 2.5, 3, 4 weeks
Yeah.
ago. There's just a lot of change in the air, and people are feeling it, and I think that's a great topic as this year's kicking off, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some people are excited. Some people are really scared, right? So why is that? Like, why do we let things bother us? And why are we even getting excited because there's an administration? Like, we get into the area of excitement when it's generated from the outside world in. It never lasts. It never will, because if the people that get in there you get excited about do something that you don't like, it starts to wane on you. You might not admit it because, hey, I voted for them or whatever it is, or I supported them. And same with the other side. Like, when things aren't going your way, why are we getting upset? And that's the question of today. It's like, why? So as we go through this journey, what I call the spiritual journey, it's about examining why is anything a problem. And you really have to ask the question. When I ask the question of other people, why does this bother you? It's not that I'm saying it shouldn't bother you, but why does it bother you? And a lot of people don't even know. Mm-hmm. Or a lot of people might have affiliations, like, why the taxes bother you? Because you've probably been cheating on them. You're worried the IRS is going to find out. But no one ever knows if they're really cheating on the tax or not. It's a very weird, blankety thing. And I'm saying, do your best. So when tax season comes and you're not worried about your taxes, it's like, yeah, you're in a pretty good state. Like, why would you worry either way? Right? And that's kind of just using that as a front example. So as we go through our life, the everyday stuff, we call everyday stuff, is always in front of us, right? And if we can't handle that, we can't handle what we think is tragedy, or we simply can't even handle or maintain what we call as a miracle.
Yeah.
So that's why we start with these moments that are right in front of us. And notice, anyone listening to the show, I'm absolutely sure you're on this journey already. When you've noticed that you don't get upset as much when things don't go your way, whether it's traffic, work, or, you're already on the way. But every once in a while, something will hit you. And then you might question, am I doing good enough on this spiritual journey? And the answer is absolutely yes, because what hit you is some experience of your, not who you are, but of your psyche or your personality or what you call ego that you might have not experienced in a long time. And when it hits you, just recognizing why is this hitting me actually allows it to move on by. It might have been something that happened 30 years ago that hasn't happened seemingly like it in the period of time in between that. And all of a sudden one day somebody says a phrase that someone said to you when you were young, and it really upset you when you were young, but you haven't heard it, and all of a sudden it hurts you now. And just noticing like, wow, when that would happen to me, I would think, okay, obviously I'm failing at this journey of spirituality. And I realized, no, I'm not. I just haven't dealt with that. So getting upset, getting angry, these emotions, they're not problematic when they happen. It's just, why am I holding on to it? That's the question. So even some of the greatest sages and masters that stepped on this planet dealt with anger, dealt with all this stuff.
I believe they all did.
They all did. They just didn't carry it. So I was carrying this thing, say, if it happened to me 30 years and it wasn't 30 years, so I looked in my backpack. I'm like, why am I still carrying this? So something hit me. It was like that thorn that was in a weird spot on my body that I barely touch. Yeah. But every once in a while I'll touch it. And instead of creating an apparatus around it, I'm like, just pull the damn thing out. Just witnessing that, oh my God, I have a thorn in my leg. Once you know you have a thorn in your leg, you're going to pull it out. Once I know that something upset me, it's already pulled out.
That's the awareness.
But people are trying to mitigate. So if somebody said something 30 years ago to me when I was younger, and then 30 years into the future right now, someone says something and it upsets me, trying to get rid of them and wrong them or stop them from saying that isn't going to help me. And
that's where most of us are at with a number of things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the outside world's fault.
Yeah. And if that person said that, it wouldn't have triggered me. And you might even forgot why it triggered you from 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. You just don't like it. And like, okay, I got to demonize that person, get rid of them. Like, well, good luck with that process, because then it'll be another 10, 20, 30 years ago, and somebody else will say something. These people keep popping up. Why? Because the thorn in your leg is going to keep rubbing up against the wall at some point. At least when you sit down in a chair or go to bed, you roll over. This is inevitable. It's going to happen, because the world in which we live in is coming, say, at us. Like a movie, just different scenes coming at us. Why can't we handle it? And that's the brilliance of today. Like, why can't we handle it? That's where we have to examine this. Like, really self-examine it. And when something comes up that you can't handle, ask yourself, why can't I handle it? Now, you're going to notice your system going out of whack, Your heart rate goes up. You're not really breathing properly. You're not thinking properly. That's when you go to the breath and just breathe in. You could sit there in the moment. Don't even do a full breath work. Just like, all of a sudden realize I have the will to control my heart rate through breath to a degree in how far out it was, right? If my guitar is really out of tune, it's going to take me a little bit longer to get it into tune. If it's slightly out of tune, it's quicker. Who cares? Because that length of time to getting my heart rate down to me relax is so much shorter. Where years ago it was like it took weeks on end for me to completely forget. Like, that's the cool thing about amnesia. Completely forget about the bullshit that upset me.
I know what you mean.
Right? Just really what happened is like
day.
That went away. Like, pain like time heals all wounds. No, over time you forget shit. Mm-hmm. That's really what it is.
Well, that's where that quote comes from.
Yeah, but what happens is it's that thing you forgot is inevitably going to show up again.
Yeah.
And you're going to and then you're trying to nah, I try to get that out of your head. I'm like, no, deal with it. Like, why did it upset you? Mm-hmm. Right? And the reason we do this is because on this journey, we came here to assist people, not help people, but to assist people and service people. Now, if I get upset at every freaking turn of the corner every day because it's raining out or a certain politician did something, I am no good to anybody else.
Yeah.
All right? So when you get into these states of not allowing anything outside of you to disrupt you greatly, it doesn't mean you don't become an advocate for something. It doesn't mean you don't become an activist or something. But activism and advocating for other people works best when you're in a prime example of feeling good and compassion. if you're not in a state of compassion, you're in a state of anger, that activism is going to turn into more anger. It always does. You cannot fight these laws. These are laws of physics. All right. So yeah, if I want to be an activist, and change the world, I have to step into a state of peace greater than if I did anger. And you look at anyone that's ever done something angrily, well, you learn it doesn't work. And then you look at somebody who did it with peace.
You have to be the change.
Yeah. So like, look at people like Martin Luther King and Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and all these people. They did it out of love and out of peace, right? And all of a sudden, this definitely resonated through our psyche here. And it did. To what? Did everyone grab onto it? No. But more people did than if Martin Luther King didn't show up, if Gandhi didn't show up, if Mother Teresa didn't show up, and so on and so forth, whoever you can name. But they did it out of peace and love. And then you look at the people that did it out of anger, and I fully understand why they were angry. But that message didn't resonate in the state of anger. It didn't. It actually, because anger is a very difficult thing to deal with. So when anger pops up into my world, I'm like, okay, why am I angry? Why am I holding on to it? That's just really holding on to something tight. And then when I let go, it doesn't mean I don't deal with the situation that generated the anger. Because what really generated the anger is my definition to the situation. So the situation's here for me personally to get involved in any way I can. So I'm better suited to get involved if I'm in a calm, compassionate state. Yeah. And that's kind of the question. Are we in that state? What state are we heading into the world today?
I think there's something that could be added to it in the sense that when we're looking at a situation, we need to always remind ourselves and ask ourselves, who is getting upset by this? And then, of course, the ego, I'm getting upset about this. Me. Well, who's me? Who's I? Who is this? Well, this is a character. This is an identity. You heard Frank say the word ego. This is a character that we consider ourselves, and we take it really seriously. And the more we can step out of this said character, the more we can see the situation from above. You'll hear us talk about, being able to, see the valley, get out of the basement and get into, the 10th floor or the 15th floor. That's what we're talking about here is we're so caught up in our day-to-day life, what's going on, what needs to get accomplished, am I performing well, am I not performing well, am I fitting in with society, am I doing this right, these are all questions that the character is worried about. And the character is the identity that we associate with. It's this character that I am Mike. Mike is a real estate agent. Mike, comes from this family in this area. This is his background, and I defend it. And I always try to remind myself that is that all that I am? Absolutely not. I know I'm more than that. I know in my heart, and getting to this level is really important for to find that peace. Because a lot of us are we feel so wound up, we feel so caught, and it's because we're only looking at things from the eyes of the character. We're not standing back and looking at this magnificent play for what it is, for the lessons it's teaching us. We don't need to go out and find our guru in the Himalayan mountains. You can walk out your front door, and how you interact with your neighbors, your friends, your boss, your colleagues at work. These are some of the best lessons to reflect back to you what you're experiencing, what you're feeling. And so I feel like it would be beneficial to talk and mention that this role, this character that we've all created, and we call ourselves, is not the end all be all.
No, but and I like how you said that. It's very well said. And I like the building analogy. You say you're in the building, you're occupying the building, but you aren't the building. But yet, there is a part of us as the witness of the building. I want to take care of the building. So if the building's on fire and if I'm alert, I'll know how to where to go to put the fire out. But I am not the building, because at any moment, if things get really bad, I can leave the building. Knowing that gives you no real strict attachment to it. Then you're going to be able to take your persona and your character and play with ease with it. A great actor knows they're only playing a role, and that's why they could, potentially win the Academy Award. But if they fall into thinking they are the character, which some do,
Yeah.
they can get lost in it. They may or may not win the Oscar for it. Not everyone that goes into those states can win the Oscar. But to the human psyche, that has to deal with, because someone once asked this question. I think it was asked of Bashar. If an actor, and I think the person was an actress that asked the question, and she asked, if I act as if I'm a cancer patient in a movie and say the role takes, say, 6 months, will I accrue cancer? And he goes, no, because you're acting. Even though you can get into the state where you're acting like you have cancer. So, but if you don't know you're acting, you get caught up in it, right? And again, this is just a very interesting way of looking at separating yourself from the character who you are to then pursue the character in which you want to be portrayed. Because the character is having the experience. So I want my character to be calm, cool, and collective. I think everyone does. And then okay, let's put the character in this situation, see what happens, And
that's a story of life.
I realize I don't have to put my character in a situation. The situations are already there.
Yeah.
But when stuff happens, because for me personally, I'll tell you personally, is a lot of things don't bother me. Do you know what bothers me? When people don't, when somebody that's really close to me gets upset over something. I get upset because they're upset. And then I try to explain to them why it's ridiculous to get upset. And in only that moment, I start defending these concepts, where nowhere else do I defend these concepts with people that are stranger. I'm like, why do you feel that way? And I'll examine and, walk them through it. And whether they get it or not, I believe at some point they will get it. I know they will. Everyone will.
That's our purpose for coming here.
Yeah, exactly. If it takes 20 lifetimes to get it, so be it, because there's no time involved.
Or 20,000.
It doesn't matter. When I think about stuff I get ideas all the time. I'm like, I wish I knew this when I was younger. I'm like, no, I don't think that at all. I really don't I wish I knew now what I knew. I wish I knew then what I know now. I'm like, no, I don't really think that way. I really don't. Some people say that. I'm like, no, I'm glad I found out right now. I'm like, holy shit, this is good, useless information. It's like, damn,
No, seriously. When the light bulb clicks and it starts to make sense.
Yeah.
At no point are you upset. Oh, I wish I learned that. No, it's kind of just like, oh fuck.
Yeah, cool. I finally got. And what it was is it was my turn for that information to be revealed to me. And guess what? It wouldn't have been useful to me when I was 18, obviously, because if it would, it would have shown up. And that's how I approach life now, anyway. Where before it was just seemingly random things happening, and things seemingly life can seemingly be random. We have events that are tragic, right? And then we have events that are miraculous, right? Now, you could also, some people could look at everyday stuff as tragic and everyday stuff as miraculous. I'm like, that's cool, right? Especially the miraculous one. Isn't it a miracle that every day the sun comes up?
Yep.
And I know someone in Seattle's like, well, I haven't seen it in a while. I'm like, well, it's the clouds. Yeah, but the sun still came up.
It's a miracle that our food digests.
Yeah, all these things again. But when most people don't sit around thinking that, and whatever. You appreciate that stuff, and that's kind of. But there are things that happen, you get into a really good relationship, a new job, things like that happen.
That feel
really
great.
Yeah, really quick, right?
Yeah.
That amplifies things, and the experience of those will do that. I'm not saying don't feel more excited about that. And then the same adversity goes to if someone gets really sick that it doesn't happen every day. So when we take what we call the everyday situation, you start your day off by getting yourself into this prime state, the state of feeling good. And what's feeling good? Noticing how you feel. I feel tired.
Awareness.
If I feel tired, it doesn't mean I don't feel good. It means I can feel that I'm tired. Okay, what can I do to mitigate my tiredness in my physical body as best I can? All right? Well, for me, cold shower, breathing really well does that. If I wake up in the morning and jump out of bed and I'm really awake, most likely I still will take the cold shower. I probably won't breathe as long. Don't need to. I'm already there. Get up and whatever activity's pulling me at the time. If sitting on a couch and meditate's pulling me, I do it. But the days that I'm kind of on my heels, off balance, those are days where I put these practices into place, and I'm finding myself less and less on my heels. But it does happen, and then I go right into those, and all of a sudden I get myself into a state that will be able to deal with the world. And it could go a long time before what we consider to be something out of the ordinary, via tragic, via miraculous happens. All right? That's why we call it miraculous, because it doesn't happen every day. Why we call it tragic is it doesn't happen every day. Mm-hmm. But if tragic things, like for doctors watching people die every day, to them it's not tragic. Yeah. It's their life. It's their normalcy, yeah. So what's one man's tragedy is another man's normalcy, so to speak,
That's a great point. It's funny that's very true.
Yeah. But think about how narrowed we are in a field. Think about like here me and Mike are sitting recording a podcast right now. Do you know how many other experiences are happening in the world? And then
8 billion.
Yeah, and then even when we wrap up here, you're going to have your own experience. I'm going to have my own experience. We're not going to meet till next Monday or whenever we talk or whatever. We'll meet again. But and then how many other experiences can I be having other than this one? It's infinite. Yeah. All right. But right now I'm having this one. So when I'm so stuck in my world, I think this is everything that's happening. If it's not going my way, I don't even know what my way is. I deem it to be a problem.
I like how you said that, even though I don't even know what my way is.
Yeah, I don't, but I know when I get into, I sink into what we call the I am, the thing that's witnessing the building, witnessing my character. That doesn't seem to be bothered at all. It might be like, hey, you might want to be nicer to that person if you want to get your way, But hey, if you don't get your way, no big deal. You got tomorrow.
Take the next turn.
Yeah, take the next. Keep going. Like the universal GPS.
Exactly.
Our internal guidance system will never give up on where we're going.
Recalculating.
Just recalculate. It never says, hey, for years I've been telling you make a right and left, and you don't listen, so I'm going to turn off.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that.
No.
That's that agony, by the way. Sometimes you can look at it that way.
Yeah.
The thing, it keeps pulling you in a direction. People are like, oh my God, why do I feel this way? I'm like that alarm is waking you up to realize you're moving in the wrong direction. Simply. Let go it, examine it. So whenever you feel this tenseness, find out in that moment, like, okay, what's bothering me? The traffic. Why is the traffic bothering you? All right. And
I'm late. I can't get to work,
Yeah, I get that. I might get
stuck.
fired. I'm like, okay. I'm like, do you love your job? Why are you thinking you're going to get fired? And if you do get fired, why can't you handle that? And how many people in the world get fired?
Every day.
Yeah, especially if you work for the government right now.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It's just happening.
I don't
all
mean
over
to
the
make
place.
light of it. I'm just laughing because that, the energy just pops out of me. But yeah, people get laid off all the time. People get new jobs all the time. All right. And I get it when it's your world. You get so caught up in it that you can lose your stuff, and you can actually start spinning in the mind. Where step back, breathe, and see the possibilities to mitigate whatever it is, turning lead into gold, so to speak.
That's exactly
And
it.
when we learn to do this, when the tragedy does hit, we're better suited to deal with it. When the miraculous happens, we're better suited to emanate the energy back out into the world. Because when something miraculous happens to me, I must share it. When something tragedy happens to me, I must look at the gift in it. Only I can do that if I'm in the proper state. So I spend my days every day, just like a Navy SEAL spends their time working out. So when they get dropped off somewhere that they don't know what's really going to happen, they're prepared. So I spend my days preparing myself, and it's actually fun. So when these things, if they happen, I better deal with it. And all of a sudden when it does, like, wow, it's kind of interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden my elevation, I become more intuitive, by the way. I become more compassionate, right? I could see everyone's viewpoint. But the thing is, how do you create equality when there's 8 billion viewpoints,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, you got to step back and allow what to happen, right? But I can still hold compassion for people. I understand why they're upset. But why, like, I want to get to the root cause. Why are you upset? And when I ask somebody the question, why you're upset, I'm not saying you shouldn't be upset. But have you ever asked yourself this question? Why are you upset? And for me, like I said earlier, I would get upset when people around me would get upset that are close to me, such as my wife, my son, what have you. And I would try to mitigate it, but I would do it. I would get out of the state in which I was trying to appropriate it, in which I talk about right now. And so all of a sudden, I'm getting upset at them getting upset. So why am I getting upset is the question I have to ask myself in that moment. And when I do, I just sit back and I let them talk. And guess what? They'll figure out their life.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. I just got to be compassionate and listen.
And we're constantly always interjecting because, again, our character feels like we know what's best.
Because this happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
and when I did this set of processes, it went away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, but
That's the weird black and white world that we're taught.
Yes.
See, we're taught that there's only this one absolute reality.
Yep.
But in the actual truth is we are all living in our own worlds, kind of sharing this plane.
yeah,
You know? And different things are happening. And just because one thing worked for you or your character does not mean that's going to apply to the 8 billion other worlds
No,
that are out there.
yeah.
So we're all arguing about this, like, absolute, no, this is the way the world is. And it's like, no, guys, that's not what this experience is.
Yeah. And,
You know?
and people, the reason they do that is they think if, like, hey, you know, if you don't recognize this, say, problem, because the people that think you should recognize a problem the way they do, they really want to help you.
Oh, yeah.
They really do.
They're earnest, yeah. I know
At
what you
the
mean.
deepest level, like, hey, if we all got behind this, we can get rid of this problem. And then the other people that don't see it a problem, when they go to the person that has a problem, you know, what's the big deal? They want to help you as well. They don't want to see you upset and, you know, getting mad and angry at this stuff. Nobody does. These are very weird emotions to be expressed.
Well, and then, you know, we have outside influence trying to come in and stoke the other side of each other.
Yeah.
You know, this is where, like, media comes in, or, you know,
Yeah.
Democrat versus Republican, all these types of things. It's like meant to, like, stoke the fire in the other
Yeah.
to get more people see, come over here. This is the right way.
Yeah, it's like it's not
You know?
bad enough getting on a log in the water, but having somebody else on the other side hitting you with a stick. like really? Like I can barely stand on the log as it's rolling. Now you're gonna start hitting me with a stick? You know, it's like what else you got?
It's like, what's going on? And so
Yeah.
it's crazy. We're
Yeah.
like, we're all, you know, or we're arguing or we're fighting or we're, you know, marching, you know, for, you know, all these different things, you know, all like stoked by the other side.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, we don't just take a step back and go, oh man, we all really do, you know, want the same thing.
Yeah,
You know,
and
we all looking for peace. We're all looking for happiness, freedom. We're
Yeah.
all looking for success.
Yeah, and it you know what's interesting is when you look at the topic we argue and fight against, people are like, oh, we're so divided. And I'm like, well, if you study history by any means, I don't mean at a great level, I'm like, humans have always done this, you know. Like, let's take the United States. This is the worst time in the United States. I'm like, the most divisive. I'm like, really?
I was going to say, you really want to look? Yeah.
Have you studied the Civil War at all?
Do we want to look back? Because
Yeah, I'm like, in the Civil War, you had half the country that didn't like the president, which is Abraham Lincoln, and then the people in the North, it's not like everyone liked him, so they were fighting amongst whether we should get into this war or not. So it's the subject keeps changing, and I'm like, why can't we agree to disagree type of thing and then work it out? Because there is this underlying understanding, like when you play a sport, in order to have a field of competition in sport, you must have collaboration. If you do not, in other words, if there's a set of rules and circumstances that you have to apply to, like say in football, like the receiver must have 2 feet in bounds when catch the ball or to consider reception. Well, it applies to every person on that field. Doesn't matter what team they are. Doesn't matter what the number they are. Doesn't matter how tall they are. That applies. So that is the collaboration there. That's a collective collaboration. We're all agreeing to these rules. Some are going to try to like hope the referee didn't see it. They're going to try to whatever squeak. That's just the human, the lacking process of the humans. Like if you're not lacking, you would, if the ref didn't call it, you would call it. You would say like, hey, I wasn't in bounds. I caught that because you can win. No matter what, or you can at least try to win no matter what. So then in that structure of the ground rules, then the ideas that come in can elevate us to a higher level. They're not supposed to be fought over. We're supposed to be doing greater than we did in the last generation. And I don't want to say the word better, because that means every generation's going, because better has the word bad attached to it, or worse attached to it. Greater and less than are mathematical terms that they can have emotion to it. Like, I could say 5 is greater than 3, but if I owed 5 million, it'd be a whole different story if I only owed 3 million, So in that case, 3 million is better than 5, but yet 5 is a greater number than 3. So we're always trying to become greater, but we have to be careful. And you can easily be careful if you're present and be able to deal with stuff and get into a state when you're dealing with whatever around you to see how it works for everybody. Okay, it does. And then how is it going to work for me individually? And then follow that path. But how things work for me, because it seemed like, okay, I could see the opportunity in here. I'm going to turn this lead into gold. I'm going to show other people, how can you turn this lead into gold? But people are like, we shouldn't have lead, period. I'm like, okay, yeah. I can't really help you there because, that's the base metal. And if we can't get beyond that point, but then I'm going to hold compassion for you. You don't realize what you have here. You have the opportunity to see a situation that needs to transmute into something. And this is the miraculous gifts that we're given every day. Is be able to transmute, no matter what happens, into gold. And like, this is an opportunity, and God gives it to you every single moment of every single day. That is the miraculous in the way I see it. So miracles happen every moment of every day. We just don't see it that way. Yeah. What people think is a miracle is, I won the lottery. I'm like, yeah, it's something you didn't see coming, that something you weren't working towards. Like, I put a lot of hard work into my lottery ticket.
Well, people would call beating cancer, curing cancer, a miracle. Yeah. And that's happening all around us. There's countless studies out there, about these people who were diagnosed with cancer, going and changing their life through diet, exercise, meditation, all sorts of things. And it's just funny how these things aren't highlighted. And so it's like we're like running around saying, no, if things aren't highlighted, then they're not true, and I need the outside world to tell me this, and we're seeing this all over the place, especially, in this political arena right now with everything going on. And it's crazy, we're watching a lot of government corruption being exposed right now. And it's very odd seeing how the world's reacting to it. And some of us are, even fighting like to keep it almost. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like I'm watching all this information come out. I'm like, man, how this is mind numbing that we've, are just now uncovering this. We've gone 50, 60, I don't even know, 70 plus years with this type of, stuff going on, right under our noses. And it's like we're fighting to keep the same system, in place just because it's the same system and it's what we're used to. I don't know.
Well, when you're in a state of fear, everything scares you. That you're not used to. So some people just don't want to hear it. Some people have their opinions. They think, okay, this boss is the same as the old boss, as you say, and that tends to happen a lot. So fear is is the emotion that we could transmute into joy and love and stuff like that. Because actually, when I say, I don't want to, the way I look at love is all there is in an energy. Like, say love is this field. Just kind of like there's no such thing as absolute darkness. Mm-hmm. In every space, there's always bits of light. But from the human condition, we need a certain amount of light to read a book, to drive a car, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the field of love. We need a certain degree of love in order to have what we deem to be a worthwhile experience. So fear detracts from that. Fear takes you into the dark to where it's almost impossible to drive. It doesn't mean there isn't love there. It's just not enough to appropriate this physical being, And so we want to mitigate the fear and start turning into love as best we can, moving it up the scale, so to speak. So taking like real detrimental fear to a place where it's, I could deal with this. I can carry it around. It's kind of like a 20-pound backpack. It's like, yeah, it's annoying, but hey, my legs are strong enough. I can handle that. To where one day just letting go of that. So we're in these states of fear. Of course you can't drive your car because it's too dark out. But put your headlights on. Oh, that button right there. Oh, I didn't know that. All of a sudden, I feel like, well, start to breathe. Is your heart opening up a little bit? Yeah, oh my God. There are things that are in the physical world through will, we could start to mitigate this. This is not just clicking my heels together, so to speak, and waiting to be back home in Kansas. I'm like, no, we have you make this into will.
Yeah, we come equipped. Every single one of us has this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The stuff happening outside of us is not my will, but thy will be done. But it's my attitude.
I think that's the hard part, by the way. At least for me, that's what I realized is the world is happening. It's going on. It's like, holy shit. But the more I dive back in, it's like going home. It's like going to the only place that I can really call real, and it's like the dust settles and you realize it's always been good and it's going to continue to be good. And then we go out into this world and so many things are going on. We've just been so duped. It's the allegory of the cave or whatever. What was that?
Yeah,
Plato?
Yeah, Plato. Yeah.
Which is all this stuff going on. It's the shadow on the wall. That's what this outside world, this experience is.
Yeah.
And we're fighting all of these shadows, and we're not doing anything about where the shadow's coming from, which is within us.
Yeah, or look at, like you said, like what is the source of a shadow? It's the blocking of light. And then the light that goes around you creates the form of the shadow. Mm-hmm. But if you never look back, so to speak, away from the wall in the cave to see where the source is coming from, yeah, you're stuck in the cave thinking these figures, like you don't even know if they're your friend or not.
No.
Like, right? So when you look back and look where the source is coming from, then you can actually play with the shadows on the wall because you realize I'm in control of the shadow of the wall.
I think a lot of people are like, no, I need more shadows out there to tell me that this is real. I need more shadows to believe these concepts in order for me to move forward with it. I feel like that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen enough shadows say this, so it can't be true. And it's fear, and it's hard. It's like, I just need this one authority position shadow to tell me.
Because the experience we're having is real.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we examine it, like you can falsely say this is what's happening. But because there's so many other variables right now, the world in which we live in is an illusion. But the illusion is a real experience. So what I mean is, it doesn't mean it's not happening, but like if you've ever been out, like we're here in the desert, this happens a lot in the summertime, where you're driving down the road and based on the heat and the when you look at the road, it looks like there's a puddle, almost a lake up ahead.
Mirage. Yeah.
It's mirage. To the senses, there was really a pool of water there, but based on the way, the heat was permeating off the ground, the way light is hitting it, it created this illusion that it was water. So light is very illusionary.
Well, you know how you're talking about the rules of the game, and like in order to play the game, you gotta have the rules. The rules of like this reality is the illusion. Like that things feel real. So science has proven this. We don't touch anything. Magnetically, we're repelling, and we get the sensation of touch. We're all made of 99.99999% of space. Well, then what is this body and skin? If it's all space in reality, well, there's nothing here. It's like the illusion is the rules. And those are the rules gravity, that we've agreed to come here and navigate through. It's the same reason if Jesus walked the earth, he came here, he died on the cross, all this type of stuff, but was able to transcend, knowing, that this is the game of space. This area that we're occupying, calling Earth.
Yeah, so when you look at the physical world we're living in, right? What was like the 5 forces? You have strong nuclear, weak nuclear, electric, and then electromagnetic, and then you have gravity. So you got these 5 forces. I'm not a scientist, so I might be missing one or misinterpreting. But within that, I don't give a shit who you are. It applies to you.
Yeah.
And how it works, So how do I dance within that field of gravity? I'm like, people are like, gravity's a bitch. I'm like, based off of what else? Like, what I'm saying? like, but the thing is, why we say that, and I joke, because the witnesser in me doesn't have to deal with gravity. Mm-hmm. Right? But yet it put the gravitational suit on called the human body. Mm-hmm. Right. So, okay, I can bitch about gravity or I can play with gravity. All right. And that's what, okay. How do I play with gravity? How do I make myself feel lighter? Lift weights. It really does. When you lift weights and put them down, you feel light. Because and the heavier your weight, without crushing your bones, it's lighter, we do these weird little hacks,
I think the smartest thing.
Well, lay down, because when you lay down, you distribute your weight more evenly. When you're standing up, it's all like down on your feet.
I think one thing that this game did the best is, teaching us or conditioning us that we need an outside authority figure to tell us how we feel. And we need something outside of us to tell us how we feel and how we think about something and what's right and what's wrong. And that's completely opposite of what this experience is. Like, from a very early age, we've known what is right or wrong by how it feels. Like, when we're in a situation. I remember my mom telling me that from a very early age. She's like, you're going to know if something is wrong by how it feels. And that was very empowering for me at a very early age.
And also the way your mom tells you.
Yeah.
That's wrong, hon. Don't you put the Don't
exactly,
tell me
right?
it's just wrong, mommy.
But it's so funny. We need extraterrestrials. Perfect example. I'm fascinated by that. I know extraterrestrials exist. I know this in my bones. I know this. But we need this out. We need our president. We need the Congress knows this. We've had multiple things about extraterrestrial life in here, but still people are like, I don't know. I don't believe. I don't have the news telling me.
But ask yourself, where do they exist?
Yeah, great question.
It's in our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the outside world can play this game. Bashar would say this all the time. Anyone that's not familiar with Bashar, he's a channeler, but the way he works is, he'll just have people come up to him and ask him questions. So he's not like you go to one of his shows or listen to his videos. He seldom, he'll do a monologue, maybe 5-10 minutes the most. Seriously, I've seen him a couple of times live, and then the rest is just people coming up. He might set a stage. Let's try to stay on topic here or whatever. But nonetheless, he does it in 5 minutes. After everyone comes up and asks him questions. So they'll ask him a question, and they'll be like, thank you for the answer. He goes, thank yourself. You just utilized me to gain the information you already knew. You're just verifying it to yourself. And he goes, you're basically, literally talking to yourself right now, using me as an example. It's always going on inside. I can always see light through my visual cortex in the back of my mind. There is nothing out here.
Neville Goddard said it best. We've covered Neville several episodes on Neville here, and he talks. What's his phrase? Everyone is you pushed out. You know, that's one of his most common phrases, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And that's going back to what we were saying earlier. You don't need to go to a cave in the Himalayas to find your guru. You can walk out your front door and see how you start interacting with people. You know, it is you pushed out. Your deepest feelings, your darkest feelings, your best feelings, all of that you're experiencing through others that you're calling, separate beings. But that's not how this reality works. That's not what this playing field is. You are interacting with yourself on a daily basis every time you walk out your front door.
Yeah, and if you and it's coming today, like with all the stuff that's happening in the world, if we come into the world today, like step out into the world and stop saying, I like people who believe this, I dislike people who believe that, because that doesn't work in your behalf, right? Like this, like, hey, this is an interesting conversation I'm in. Like, I see people like get into conspiracy theories with me. Mm-hmm. Now, this is where, like, if it's somewhat of somebody I know, but like somehow I'm able to be like, oh, this is interesting, and I'll go along with it. Just have fun with it, right? Again, if they're suffering from it, I don't keep that lightly. I try to like inject something that keeps them suffering. If I can't, I then remain quiet. I don't embellish it to make it, I certainly, if something's hurting somebody, I don't want to be like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do that.
Feed into it.
Yeah, I don't feed into it. But a lot of times it's more playful that we do stuff like that. I don't correct people. But when I'm around my wife and she does that, I always felt the need to correct her. And that was the point where I had to learn, like, no, it's not the way to do it. I was able to disassociate from different, whoever was around. And that was something I recently had to learn, that stop doing that. Like, well, I hold my wife to a higher expectation. I'm like, well, that's all in you. Mm-hmm. So now your expectation isn't to hold her to a higher standard. My expectation is my wife should think the way I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, no, it's just, I don't want anyone. I think pretty crazily sometimes.
No, but that is some wise shit, what you just said. And everyone can relate to that. Anybody with a significant other spouse can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, which is, they should think like me, which is really what it boils down to.
And notice the people that are closest to you are your projected outward, are your greatest teachers.
100%.
So if that gets overwhelming, I suggest you go out into the public and run to people that acquaintances or that you may see once in a while, and work it out. Like, in other words, be nice to the cashier. Genuinely be nice to the cashier. Genuinely, like, ask like how the day's going. I know you don't have a lot of time to do that, but do that. And when they you ask them a question like, how's your day going? Listen to how the day is going. If they put it out there.
That's one of my favorite things I do.
Yeah.
I always try to do that because it's like you see it in their eyes. They're like, holy shit, I'm just talking to like a robot all day.
Yeah, but you have to be conscious. You have to be in that state. And then my greatest interactions happen in that way because I'm not anticipating anything. Yeah. I'm just like, okay, as an individual in front of me, I'm sitting there. I'm not going to... if people see people at the register, no one looks at each other. They look down,
at their
bleep,
phone.
Bleep. Can I help you with anything else? Nope. Bleep, bleep. So I'm just like, how's your day going? They look up, good. And then like, whatever pops into my head or whatever pops in my head, we start talking, brief conversations. And then if they are wearing a name tag, I'll just call them the name. When I do that, they look up, and I'm like, well, that's why you have the name tag on there, But yet, I had to be conscious to do that. And I'm not fake. Like, the consciousness is what takes the insincerity out of it.
Yeah.
It's very sincere. I'm not just
people
saying.
Can tell. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and all of a sudden and I leave and that's a great moment. And then I walk out and then I'm aware of the people that are around me. And I keep doing that. All of a sudden when I get home to my wife, I have to keep doing that. I can't just be like, step out. I think I told the story one time, but I came from work one day. I pulled in the garage and I got a text from someone and I got caught up in the thought and I walk in and she's sitting on the couch and I put hey, how was your day? I'm like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it's like, what's the matter? And I almost defended, like, almost went down this road. I'm like, what do you mean it's matter? I just walked in the door and I just like that. Mm-hmm. What I did is I put my stuff on the counter. I went back into the garage and I closed the door and I opened the door and I'm like, hello, darling. I literally exit the stage and came back in a more appropriate way. And then she started laughing and it changed the mood because I came in my head and didn't give homage to my wife who was sitting there waiting for, I don't know if she's sitting there waiting for me to go home, but she was expecting me home and she's like, hey, how was your day? And I'm like, and instead of like, I had the right to be like, hey, I just got in, give me a break. Or I could have done what I did and I stepped out like, hello, darling. I don't know why I had to put the accent on there.
Accent. Well, it just made it that much more special.
Fun. So in order to do that, I had to be conscious. And the outlook of that evening was so much greater. And we, when you're laughing, you're conscious. When you're having fun, all it's up. But I could easily defended myself, and then she would have got quiet and I got quiet, and the next morning I would apologize. I didn't have to say sorry the next morning.
It's funny you say that too. Like I remember that growing up. My mom used to do something like that. Like we'd be like in the car and we'd all be fighting or whatever, everyone's pissed off in this mood, and my mom would stop and say, hey, okay, right now, like right in this moment, we're gonna let all of this go, and it's going to be a good day. We're not going to fight anymore. This is be in the past, completely change the moment right now. And it used to feel so good as a kid anytime that would happen because it really did change the entire trajectory of that evening, afternoon, whatever, versus what it could have been and where we all felt it was going.
Yeah, my dad did the same thing, but he made it like, I'll give you something to really worry about. So
take it off his belt.
So you look at it like, oh shit, it could be worse. Like he took
get over here, Frankie.
He took an opposite approach. I'm like, oh, this could be worse. Like I better shut up.
Beat your ass.
Either way, it worked, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say he got the same outcome.
Yeah, you keep fighting back there. I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen. I'm like, oh shit.
That's so funny. Yeah. But like we have that ability in any given moment to all do this, to all, walk in and hello, darling. We all have the ability to do that.
Yes. And that's when you work on these.
We just think we don't.
Yeah. When you work on your state, you're constantly taking sight of your state. Like, what state am I in? How do I feel? I don't mean, is my ankle hurting? Mm-hmm. These are aches and pains. It happens. Like my ankle's hurting. Yeah, it's pain, but pain doesn't necessarily have to draw into your emotion. It doesn't. Pain is just an indication to go deal with whatever's hurting, right? Yeah. Go to the doctors, do whatever you have to do, whatever method that's appropriate for you, right? Mm-hmm. Do that. But it's bringing attention. Attention is focus, all right? But how do I feel? Like genuine. Like I could even be sick, like have a cold and feel good, all right? Yeah. When I'm sick, certain activities I cannot do. When I have a broken ankle, there's certain activities I can't do. But if I can't do this activity, why am I upset? Like, how many activities I can't do? Like dunk a basketball?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I can name 100 things I can't do.
If I had a trampoline or a ladder, I could. But there's so many activities I can't do, but I don't sit there. There's more activities I can't do than I can do. And if you base your life off being happy on the activities you can do, God, that'd be a difficult life to live.
Man, it's funny. That was that was awesome that you said that. You're totally right. There are so many things out there that we can't do versus what we can do.
Yeah.
And we all are kind of walking around focusing on, there's a laundry list.
There's a lot of shit we can't do.
Yeah, there's a ton of things.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but we why would we put the focus there? Why would we put any attention there?
Yeah. And again,
it's because we're taught to feel lack.
Yeah. And again, a lot of times if you focus, you can't do something. Like for me, it's like, okay, if I really want to dunk a basketball, is it possible for me to do that? And the answer is yes.
I was going to say, hell yes.
But if I give enough attention to it and work out the logistics of doing calf raises and learning how to jump better, lighten up and become springy, is it possible? And the answer is yes. But for me, that's not really...
Is there any desire?
Yeah, there's no desire there. So the areas of desire that I'm in that things do happen where I feel I can't do it. Well, that's why I narrow my focus on to the attention to how can I, if I want to play the piano or say, not just play piano, say I want to play Chopin. Well, what do I need to do? First, I have to learn scales. And then if I want to play Chopin, I have to learn how to stretch the damn fingers or at least move my hand quickly, right? So those things are possible to practice, but I have to give full-on attention to them, at least every day for, say, an hour, If it's Chopin, if it's somebody else, probably a little bit less. but you know what I'm saying? Am I willing to do that? And in the act of doing that, that process becomes my focus, because when I'm playing the piano and doing this, I'm not worried about what I can't do. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I realize, wow, that's cool. So in these moments, like, what can we do now with the limited field of, because we are limited, right? But a football field is limited in space, but you're never, ever going to run out of plays to watch. It's infinite possibilities that could happen on that damn field.
Yeah.
We've seen it yesterday at the Super Bowl.
Perfect example.
So realize the limitations that were given to us aren't prisons. It just make us have to focus deeper. So if you feel limited right now by what's happening or being appropriated in government right now, how can you find your way out of that limitation and turn it into something that's unlimited?
Transcendent.
How can we do that? So, in other words, if there was infinite notes in music, would I even be able to play music? I wouldn't know where to start. Mm-hmm. If there was infinite symbols to make up the alphabet in the English language, would I even know how to write a sentence or even come up with a word? I wouldn't. Because there's a finite amount of letters, I can write infinite amount of books. Because there's a finite amount of notes in music, I can infinitely write music. So the finite is what sets the stage for the infinite. Yeah. So yes, we are limited, but god damn, we're going to have a great time trying to figure that shit out.
That's the attitude.
That's why we have escape rooms now. Right? Like, that's like, who the hell would do that? Like, well, you have to get together and collaborate to get out. Yeah. And there's a way out, because nobody would put you in there.
I don't know why this popped in my head, but I'm just gonna share it because I think it's funny and maybe it'll
funny shit
resonate for someone. But I was talking with Kayla, and her sister Shanna, you know, she wanted to go to that Oregon Stop pizza place, right? So there's this place in Arizona with Oregon Stop, and there's like this organ that plays, and this is like been around a long ass time. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember this when I was a kid, you know, and it's weird to think that anybody would just like go to this weird pizza place where this guy plays an organ for 3 hours and you eat around and watch him. But anyways, I
did every Sunday in church. The organ.
they went for some reason to go check this out, and the original organ player like got ill, and they flew out this like 16-year-old prodigy. Like this 16-year-old kid who came, and
he's an organ player.
Yeah, he's organ. Yeah, and dude, he was like killing it. By the way, like he people were throwing out like pop songs and stuff like this, and this kid knew everything. Like, he was like, oh yeah, no problem, and starts playing it on the organ, and like, this kid's like really young. But in my head, I'm going, okay, like with social media nowadays and TikTok and all this shit, like, what 16-year-old kid wants to play the frickin' organ first off? Like, the least cool instrument out there. Yeah. You know, knows all these like crazy current pop songs on it, and like just the whole thing is like so weird to me, you know? But like, that's the thing. It's he came here, and that was an experience. Like, that's just not my experience, you know? Yeah. And we're all out here like trying to judge and say, no, only these experiences are okay. I want to be this guy with this amount of money in that type of house with this type of wife and this amount of kids and dog. And it's weird how we limit ourselves with all of what we can be, when actually what we come through is totally different. And like, that was his gift to share with the world, clearly. Yeah. You know, the kid got flown in too to like do this.
So the question I have to ask is, how much is a damn pizza?
I know, right? Well, that's what I was thinking too. It's funny you say that. The business he was like, wait, we got how many place seats in here, and they're charging what a head? I was like, how do they do this?
But they have to fly somebody in.
I don't know why I needed to share that, but I guess I was trying to like show like, hey, what we come through to like experience, it's not all the same cookie cutter shit. We're not all supposed to come here and be multi-billionaires that do that. Like,
No.
that's like this weird thing that we've been told we should want. And it's to keep us chasing this carrot, you know, and keep us chasing money and stay unhappy and feel unfulfilled, because who's better to sell something to than somebody who's in fear and who's not happy? That's
Yes.
the only reason, guys, that media is constantly making us feel unhappy and unworthy, is because we are great consumers.
Yeah. And that's the question I've asked for everyone, and even myself, in this day and age. Like, you know, if you want to go political or what have you, why do you have this viewpoint against this viewpoint, or why do you have this viewpoint against this viewpoint? And most people don't know, or they'll say, well, because I grew up in this situation, my family is greatly affected by the situation. Okay. All right. So now what you're trying to do is you're trying to stop everything in the world from happening to upset your family. I'm like, good luck with that. That's not how life works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's a tough road to go, because now you have to get everyone involved to be on your side. But then something else would come up, a problem with that, right? The outside world. So how do I, it doesn't mean I don't deal with it, but how do I get, you know, to a place where I can see and rise above it to see the solution? And the solution doesn't negate other people.
Mm-mm.
See, it's almost like, with, you know, it's like a Rubik's Cube. Every time I turn something, it affects something else. And it's able to see that, okay, if I could turn this, it will also help line this up. That's the mind we need to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because
good analogy.
Yeah. So as I do this, how is it like, okay, I can get 3 blues here. I'm like, yeah, but it's ruining the whole red side that you got. I'm like, you might want to think that. Or are you temporarily putting off the red to get to that whatever?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start to think in a broader perspective. And if you stand back, get to a higher level, when you get into these higher states, you can actually see the whole valley, and you can see how everything operates and goes there. So then you go to individuals and say, trust me, go this way. Or don't say trust me. Say, come with me to the top of the mountain. Okay, that's where you were. You're here right now. When you get down, you're going to go back to where you were. You can see how going this way. So now I'm not saying trust me. I'm saying trust yourself that, I can see how, okay, now, boom, I go back into that place, and I then follow that route. And periodically, we have to come up. So don't even take my word for it. You yourself, elevate yourself to a higher level. And the way we do this is everyday work. And then all of a sudden becomes who you are. If you play piano every day for a certain amount of time, you're no longer thinking about scales. Now you're just playing Mozart or Chopin or whatever. You're actually just playing it. Now you're just like, okay, how can I use these scales and make a song? Mm-hmm. Right? That's how you make songs, with scales. But now it's not just me running through scales. It's scales interrupted by other scales and shifted to other scales that actually blend into each other. Next thing you know, it's what we call a piece of music. Yeah. So it's like the color blue, the color red, all these colors together. I can make a painting. I can make any color I want out of it. Yeah. So now that I got these colors, what am I going to do with them?
And when you start to see things like, quote unquote, not working out, or it's like falling apart or something like that, at least for me, like I was able, when you detach and pull back, you realize that certain things do need to fall apart, and that situation does need to happen in order to get to like that greater good, like the red side of the,
Exactly.
the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to take a step back and do this, which momentarily I don't like, or the situation sucks, but it's in order to get to the whole, you know?
Because the way the Rubik's Cube works, everyone knows that. You're going to disrupt everything once you turn something.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could see the bigger picture, how it's disrupted, and all of a sudden you come back and boom, you lay it down, and every side is its own color. But there was a lot of disruption going on. But if you stand back, you realize the disruption is an organizing principle.
Yeah.
That what it is in the moment that I'm making that turn, it's not done. This is a continuous experience that humans are having. You know, you look at the United States, it's a continuous experience that's been happening for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So why is this like, okay, yeah, step back. Is it going in the wrong direction? Step back. Okay, how can we mitigate this? How can we Could put compassion to it, all right? Take control as best you can. But when you're upset and in the basement trying to construct the upper floors of the building or trying to tell people what kind of furniture to put in, like, you don't even know what the hell the floor looks like to do that. Like, and that's what a lot of people are. A lot of people are not in positions to where they're all making the decision, but they're not in a position to actually, know where to put the couch. And like, oh, put the couch on the far wall, but the far wall is all windows. It looks weird there. Well, they can't see that from the basement. So we're getting our information in very small doses and thinking this is all there is. If someone locked you in a box your whole life and they poked a little needle through and that light came through and someone convinced you that was the sun, that is a piece of the sun. But it's not the sun in its entirety. It's the sun diminished down to a little pinhole. And that's all there is, by the way. All of a sudden you would believe it. So why do we believe in this stuff? Because we narrow our focus. We put blinders on. Well, take those off. Just for a moment, get rid of all your beliefs. Just for a moment, get rid of all your preferences. Just for a moment, see what happens. Oh, I'm not saying get rid of beliefs. I'm not saying get rid of preferences. You can't get rid of them. But what you can do is you can put them down. If I'm climbing a mountain, I'm not taking my furniture that's in my house with me. I go for a hike. I leave my shit home. I come home, my shit's there. But imagine,
I need my whole house.
I got to take my whole house with me.
Can't let anybody take this from me.
I guess you can now. That's called a trailer or a camper.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say
a motorhome.
Motorhome.
But even then, you don't take the motorhome hiking with you. Eventually,
you leave the motorhome.
You leave the motorhome. That's why people have a motorhome and they have bicycles attached to it. They have cars attached to it. Because when they get to where they're going, they can't go, it'd be very difficult to pull into a grocery store with a motorhome. And you get the picture. So leave these things behind. You don't get rid of them, but leave them and suspend that moment in time. And all of a sudden, like, wow. Yeah. So we don't have to trade one belief for another. You don't have to become a Democrat opposed to Republican. You get to remain a Democrat. You can remain a Republican. But when you look at it differently, you can enhance the experience of all, not just you, all. Again, the Rubik's Cube. We want all the colors to match up. And then you have this thing. We don't want the chaos. But in it, when we're so close, life is chaotic. It really is.
Oh, yeah, that's why the world feels like it's coming at us a million miles an hour right now. We got so much coming at us with how we share information now. It's like, holy shit.
So if you ever spent any time in the ocean, like even on a calm day, the surface is rough, people get seasick. But if you floated down like 20 feet and, you were able to do that without any suffering any compression, issues, such as the bends or whatever, you wouldn't have seasick. It's calm. It's very calm at that level. So going in and then extend yourself out, all of a sudden you realize, if it gets too much, I could always go within. And when I do that, I'm like, wow, it's calm down here. It's just the surface.
Going back home.
It's just on the surface, the ocean looks erratic. But down below, it's calm. I
think this is a perfect spot for us to share that Muji video.
Yes, it is.
We've got a clip from one of our favorites, Muji.
Yeah.
He just put this out not too long ago. This is only 4 weeks old or something. But
all right.
This will be a good one.
Here we go.
What is it that gets pulled into identity? Is it the self?
No,
attention. Attention gets pulled. So attention is very important.
Yeah.
When the attention gets pulled into identity, what knows it most deeply? The attention, the mind, the person, or the inmost self?
The self, the inmost self.
The self. Does it suffer? No. Still, it's important because every time the attention goes out and forgets itself, it forgets where it comes from.
Yeah.
Every time the attention goes out, gets involved in its projections, it causes some pain. It creates a kind of a world. It creates emotion. It creates ups and downs like this. and something is troubled by that. Maybe the person is troubled by that.
Yeah.
And in our world, everything is due to the person. It's the person that takes another person to court. It's the person that wins or loses. What about the self?
Nothing.
Is it important to know this?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so when we speak about, to come back to your Latin now, you say, I don't know how to observe with detachment. Does the self need to know how to observe with detachment? Why?
It doesn't need anything.
It doesn't need anything. Yet everything is known to it. The play of the mind or da-da-da-da, it knows, but it's not impacted upon.
No.
There is a link between the sense of the person and the inner self.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the person who cannot exist without the inner self, when it gets into states of confusion and pain, okay, if it doesn't realize its root as the inner self,
Yeah, yeah.
it goes floating off. And
Yes.
trouble can come,
Yeah.
mental problem can come, sickness can come, anger can come, fear come, everything come. So it's very important that this personal sense become aware of its root.
Yes, and when I try to do this exercise,
Yes.
I cannot come to this.
Who is doing the exercise?
Yes, it's the mind and the
The mind is
person
doing.
and the one who wants to stop suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
What knows this? What is aware of this? Is it the person mind or the inner self?
The inner self.
Yeah. Is the inner self troubled? Still, the exercise is good because this is the real yoga. Yoga means the coming together into oneness, where the sense of the person has to rediscover its root. The person cannot live by itself, even when it's not aware of the self. It still comes from the self. You see, so largely the human expression of the consciousness self is self-aware as a person. And so it can go for lifetimes in the human lifetime, living the person because it's a big world, it's dreams, and I have to go do this, and I like this, I don't like that, and da-da-da-da, and maybe life after life. This life, I love ice cream, I'll die for ice cream. Next life, I can't stand ice cream. There's nothing consistent about it, except that it cannot exist without the real self. And it has intelligence also. So when it happens to this personal self, for some reason, it's being attracted to find out. Maybe it suffers enough in the world, and it wants to find a solution for it. And the only solid solution is to discover where it comes from, and that where it comes from and itself are one.
That was very well said.
Yeah.
And that's what I consider to be the direct route. Because that's what's happening right now. We all are trying to figure out how to become at peace and find something, and we think it's going to be appropriated through certain type of actions on the outside world, right? That never is, because every action I take, it's going to have somewhere down the road some other adverse effect. So if I'm trying to do something, because people are trying to fix things now, all right? So if I fix something now, it's going to have something else that's going to come about. That's just how the world works. But when I go within, there's nothing wrong. Absolutely. It's just an experience that my personal self, my persona is having. And at the end of the movie, like, was the Joker wrong to Batman? I'm like, well, what would Batman be without the Joker, right? It was like, but the broader perspective of the whole arching understanding of story is compassion. We learn that over time. It's compassion. Like, why did Bruce Wayne get into this business anyway? Because somebody killed his parents, right? And it just started down this road. But we go down to the seated root here. It's like, wow, okay, it's just an experience. And we're having these momentary experiences. We think this is the end of it. I'm like, no, let it play out. Again, you act on what you can in the moment, but when you maintain the state in which you're in as a higher state rather than a state of anger, I'm like, the state of anger, what's it's going to give you? It's physics. Well, whatever you put out is what you get back. That's what the fourth law, right? And the fifth law being change is the only constant. Stop trying to stop things from changing. But what state am I in? Well, what state is your observer in? Your observer doesn't need anything. Mm-hmm. Just like the screen of a movie doesn't need anything, but it allows the movie to play on it.
That's it. The observer, it exists. That's what it is it exists.
Yeah.
It witnesses, it exists. How do we know that we are or who we are? We know we exist. That is this observer behind the scenes, if you will, And I don't know, there's something like this clip from Muji was perfect with everything that we were just talking about today, And it was great to hear it from his perspective and what he shared. He said, every time the attention goes out and it gets lost into perception, this who's getting troubled, it's the person. The person's getting troubled by this. And we've all heard this saying, like, what is it?
And why is the person getting troubled?
Well, that's because we're only identifying as the person.
Yeah, or the person itself has all these restrictions. This has to happen. This can't happen. Mm-hmm. Where the higher self is like, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. So when you have all these damn restrictions and the world isn't playing out according to those restrictions, that is what creates a disturbance in the inner body, or what we call in the experience in which we're having.
Exactly.
I'm like, why is this a preference? Well, I can tell you why, because you were born here and this is all they offered you. Mm-hmm. And okay, so this must be the truth. This must be the best food in the world. Or like I grew up in New York, and as a kid, we were told it was the greatest city in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. Meanwhile, I've never been to any other city at the time I noticed that. Like, yeah. And then you start asking the question, why is New York the best city? Mm-hmm. What does it have? And I'm like, I'll tell you why it's the best city. It's because some firm out there in advertising came up with the slogan first. Mm-hmm. Chicago's like, damn it, we missed it.
Missed our window.
Or Paris, like, son of a bitch.
Literally.
Well, the Parisians probably would never thought about like becoming the best, whatever. But some other city in this country is like, son of a bitch. Because once you say you're the best, you can't be like, oh, we're the second best.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. But like, we've all heard that saying, we don't know what the other person's going through, right? That's become popular, at least in the last 5-10 years, which is we never know what somebody's going through. Yeah. But that is such a true statement, and it applies to every single one of us, but we don't focus on it. We don't. Yeah. We only think about that like after the fact and down the road. But really, like, what you're going through, what your shit is totally different for another person. Like the shit I'm going through and the shit that I look at as stressors and stuff like that is completely and totally different for Frank and what he's experiencing, what his things are. But we're both going through things, and this is for everyone listening, and that's why when people share their stories, we like can so connect with them, is because we're like, oh my God, I can't imagine having to go through that myself, or, oh my God, that's so profound.
Yeah, but think about it. That's a great point you brought up. But so when I hear somebody's story and I see they're struggling, they're going through something, well, why aren't I struggling? Because I don't hold any attachment to it. So, okay, what I'm struggling with, why am I holding attachment to it? That is the direct route right there, baby.
Yeah, that is
because
the direct route.
Instead of like saying, oh, if that was happened to me, I'm like, no, like the reason I listen to them, I have compassion for them, I don't want anyone to hurt, because I have no attachment to that story. So why am I attaching to my story so I can feel hurt?
Yeah.
Like, let it go, just like you let go of the other person's, right?
It should be just that easy once it clicks.
Yes, once you understand that, like, because it's not personal. You know, Forrest Gump isn't personal to freaking Tom Hanks, for the love of God. It's just a role Tom Hanks plays. You know, then people don't walk around and say, "Hey, Forrest," you know, it'd be a little weird. I'm sure a couple of people do, like, you know, joking around, but he doesn't, you know, he realized it was just a character. It's not personal. It was to fulfill a story. It was a play. So why are we getting upset what's happening? And when you start to examine that and be truthful to yourself, don't just take Mike and I's word for it. Like, these are things I examine continues to say, why does this upset
Day in,
me?
day out.
It upset me because I was told this shouldn't happen. So I bought into a belief. And what happens is when these beliefs and what's actually happening in front of me don't match up, I get this interference pattern. And it then translates into an emotion, not a good one. And all of a sudden, like, whoa, okay, if I stop this person from doing that, my emotion can then permeate to a higher level. I'm like, okay, you can do that temporarily. Maybe you can't. But all of a sudden, if I just get rid of this shouldn't have happened, my inner state never gets disturbed. I invited something in that I knew was going to, you know, I tell people, don't get rid of your preferences, loosen them up. And over time, you're really going to start letting go of your preferences. You don't get rid of them, you put them down. You can't get rid of preferences, but you don't have to carry them everywhere you go. You know, like if you're like walking to a Chinese restaurant, your preference is pizza, you're in trouble. Your preference should just be to fill your belly at that moment. It's like, okay, it's Chinese food, let me eat it. You know, now when I'm in the Chinese food restaurant, I could choose the pork or the chicken, right? I'm not saying don't give that up, but to say like, no, I'm going to eat pizza, I'm like, well, I can ask. Don't make pizza, but that might be a difficult day for you, buddy. You
Right.
know? And yeah, I got pizza mind on, but
I love it. I love it. I saw that.
Yeah, it was careless shirt.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw that. I loved
You know,
it.
I wore it today because actually we had pizza at Super Bowl.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, we eat pizza like once or twice a year.
That's so funny.
I savor it. So I'm like, she's like, what do you want for dinner tonight? She's
Yeah.
like, I'm not cooking. I'm like, that's okay.
You're like, definitely.
I'm like, let's order pizza, and we got pizza.
See, hell yeah. Kayla got Frank this shirt. You know, it's what does it say? Pizza mind.
Pizza mind,
of
yeah.
consciousness.
Because I'm always using pizza as some
that's-
form of analogy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great gift. I remember her picking out. She's like, "Do you think Frank will like this?" I was like, "He's gonna love it."
Yeah,
I was like, "That's perfect."
yeah.
But this episode was great, guys, because this is something we're all going through on a daily basis, day in, day out. And these types of reminders are the same reminders that, you know, all of us kind of need, if you will.
And,
you know?
Yeah, and if you like what Muji said towards the end, yoga is the practice of union between the higher self and the persona. So by practicing these modalities such as breathing, meditation, whatever modalities you like to do, those would bring you back. Like when I meditate or I breathe, I go back because I'm not thinking. I go back seated to who I really am. And the more I do it, the more I want to do it. And all of a sudden, over time, it becomes who I am. So then the practice lightens up. It's no longer a must do. It's something like, oh, you know, like, oh, okay. You know, it's like, oh, I'm walking around in a meditative state. And then someone says something that triggers me. Okay, stop breathing. Okay, you know, oh, that's gone, you know. Thank you, by the way, for upsetting me, you know, because that's one. It's like you're clearing out your storage locker, and until you get everything out, you can't hand over the keys to the people owning it and stop paying the rent. That's what we're doing. We're paying rent on shit that we don't even use, people. Yeah. That's what we're doing with these thoughts, and these beliefs and these ideas. It's like we're literally paying rent for shit that doesn't work for us. It's in a storage locker. It's the weirdest thing.
That's totally what it is. It's us walking around, you know. And I remind myself that too when I'm going through it. I'm like, whoa. What does this like amount of worry, stress, and focus do? It's never given me the thing, or it's never changed the outcome. In fact, it's only made things worse. It makes more sense logically to simply let go of this and begin to head down the trajectory that I would like to experience or like to enjoy. And that's a way for me to get the thinking mind kind of on board. Like, whoa. There's no point in this.
No. So
paying rent on this shit.
Yeah. Anyone out there, your work is in this is the work I do, it's the work I know Mike does
Daily.
is every day just examine that. When something hits you, let go of it. And see how difficult. How do I let go? Well, okay, you could just notice it, and that's called a direct route. Or if that doesn't seem to work, you're really worked up. Well, how do I get my body into a parasympathetic state? Breathing, cold water, whatever modality is best for you that's available at the moment. Obviously, breathing's always there. Just consciously breathe in deep, hold it, slowly out, and notice it start to relax. Situation, the person that said something, that's still readily available in your mind. But notice, okay, I don't feel as bad now, but I'm still going to deal with it. I'm still going to pay my taxes. I'm still going to, get around this person that's driving slow. I'm still going to get to work. But all of a sudden, now these things become enjoyable and with ease. So yeah, just do the practice and know that the more individuals do the practice, the easier it is for the other people that are really suffering to stop suffering. So I almost put it on myself to feel as best I can, or get into that state and maintain. And the state is always shifting. Nothing remains the same. So, but I keep staying in this level of different states. Like there's so many levels of love. Love is like different frequencies within love. But I'm going to keep going and playing within this field. And all of a sudden I notice those around me suffer less. They suffer more when I'm angry. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely.
And I don't want people to suffer based on my anger. The world doesn't need another angry person.
I think we all can agree with that.
Especially one from New York.
Get out there.
Yeah.
Be you. Let's take a step back from this character, this identity, loosen up. That's the best way, to get things on track.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys tuning in today. It was a pleasure as always. If you guys liked what you heard, please like and subscribe. We will be back next week. Anything you want to share, Frank?
No, just just wish everyone love out there and peace, and go within.
It's going to be a great year.
That's it.
See you guys next week.
All right. Peace out.